A good night of Shabbos to everyone. Parshas Bolok. Following Yud Beis, Yud Gimel Tammuz. And a few days before Shivasa B'Tammuz, Yehovchu Yom Me'elu L'Sasel L'Simcha, may these days be transformed for joy and happiness. Let me begin with a story I heard just last night, a new story that I never heard, from the grandson of Rabbi Barnetsky. Rabbi Barnetsky was my 5th grade Rebbe at Lubavitch Yeshiva, and he taught in the yeshiva for 50 plus years, or maybe 60 years, many years. And he was a Tayyid Yid. He was a student of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and in fact, he went to Otfotsk before the outbreak of World War II to learn there. And he was learning with Rabbi Jacobson, Chassidus, in the 1930s, while he was a student at Torah Vadas. And Rabbi Barnetsky was a Tayyid Yid, a sincere Yid. I recall when he would daven, his face turned red. So his grandson, Eli Ariel, told me the following. In I guess 1941 or 42, the Frierdiker Rebbe asked him, Rabbi Barnetsky, his grandfather, Eli's grandfather, where do Chassidim, Lubavitch Chassidim bury people, Lubavitchers? He said in Staten Island, there's a chelka, there's a section there that Chabad Chassidim from the turn of the century were burying their relatives there. The Frierdiker Rebbe asked, how do they get there? So he said, in those days you drove your car, the hearse, you drove it onto the boat, and it took you over the river to Staten Island, because this was before the Verrazano Bridge was built, I believe in the late 50s or early 60s. Anyway, so the Rebbe said to him, to Rabbi Barnetsky, my mama wird dort nicht liegen. I will not bury my mother there. This was when Rebbe Sterner Soda, his mother was very sick, and this is, I guess, before the Frierdiker Rebbe went to Chicago, because his mother passed away when he was in Chicago. But she was very ill, and the Rebbe was obviously preparing himself to have a plot for his mother. And he said to Rabbi Barnetsky, my mama wird dort nicht liegen. And the explanation that, I don't know if the Frierdiker Rebbe said this or Eli said this, is that because the ground, the earth, is wet from the water, the ocean, the body doesn't disintegrate. And he said that that's a pain for the neshama, because it's chibut hakever, it's called. And we don't want a person to have chibut hakever, the banging around of the caver of the body being in the earth. So when the body disintegrates, the neshama has peace, shalom, menucha, rest. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, since that this cemetery is near the water, so therefore the water doesn't allow the body to disintegrate as fast, or maybe at all, I don't know. My mama wird dort nicht liegen. And shortly there, and so he asked Rabbi Barnetsky, can you find another place? So Rabbi Barnetsky, I guess in conjunction with Rabbi Kazanovsky and Rabbi Jacobson, they found the place which is today the oil kotshay of the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe, the oil in Queens. So this is the first time I heard the Maisa, the story. If anyone has heard this before, please tell me. If there are different details than the way I heard it, please let me know as well, so we could get it straight. But this is what this grandson called me last night to tell me, that he heard this Maisa not just once, several times from his Zayda Rabbi Barnetsky himself, who the Frierdiker Rebbe discussed and this issue with, and asked him to find another place where he can bury his mother, where the goof will disintegrate, etc., etc. Rabbi Say, it's gewaltige days and it's hard days. We just had a tragedy in Miami. A building that had many Yidden in it collapsed, and if you saw the way they had pictures of it, mamish like a shoebox, it fell down the back side of the building towards the ocean. And this is in a city called Surfside, in which the shul, Rabbi Lipsker, the Rebbe Shliach there, is the Rav. My parents lived across the street from the shul, so I know the area well. And I can imagine the type of building it was, because my parents were on the 6th floor and they were towards the front of the building. And when we wanted to see the ocean, we would go on the porch to look towards the back. But it was the back side of this building, I think on 88th Street in Collins. The shul is on 95th in Collins, which collapsed. We know little. We don't understand the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As we speak now, we have to continue davening that the Eibishter shall make a miracle, that many of those people under the rubble are still alive and will be found and be healed and be back with us. Those that have perished, they say 4 have perished already. If any of them are Yidden or even Lehavdil non-Jews, may their souls rest in peace, as we say. But the question is, what's the connection to Yud Beis, Yud Gimel Tammuz and Shivasa B'Tammuz? Just a thought, a short thought. At the highest time of Simcha, the wedding, the Jewish tradition is to break a glass to remember the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. The way HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way God created this world is such that there's a dual reality. There is goodness and kindness that's obvious, and there's goodness and kindness that's disguised and concealed. Both are from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Both are from God. There's no such a thing as evil or bad coming from God. The issue is whether we perceive it as good or we perceive it as bad. The fact that a building collapses, what's the message? What's the message? Well, someone is saying, Al Shleisha Dvarim I made, and there were 3. So we've had 3 Nebuch collapses: Miron, the Karlin stolen shul in Yerushalayim, outside of Yerushalayim, and now a building that had many Yidden in Florida, Miami area. We need to strengthen the Shleisha Dvarim, the 3 things upon which, the 3 pillars upon which the world stands: Torah, Avodah, Gemilut Chasadim. To increase our study of Torah, avoid is the idea of davening with a minyan, not talking during davening and all of that. And Gemilut Chasadim, helping people with loans and tzedakah, and such chesed. Also, a building has a foundation. And it seems that the foundation here went into the earth. If the way the buildings fell, it's like a matchback, droop, and even the rubble is like a pancake, one on top of the other. It seems like the earth gave out, and it all disintegrated and melted, and everything fell. The foundation of Yiddishkeit is emunah, is faith, and betochen, trust in the Eibishter. The seichel, the intellect, and the midas and the emotions are already a development and an enhancement of emunah, of faith. We need to strengthen our emunah in the Eibishter. The more we strengthen our emunah in the Eibishter, the stronger the building will be and stand firm. Another point possibly to think about is the buildings there are one next to the other. You know, it's prime real estate. You're on the ocean. I once heard that the reason why trees in a forest stand nice and erect and straight and tall, whereas if trees are just growing on the street and they're scattered, they're not next to each other, they tend to bend and fall, is because when you stand next to each other, you have the power and strength of each other holding each other strong and straight. When you're on your own, at the end of the day, you fall, you bend. Avas Yisrael, the buildings, to continue standing straight and erect and tall and beautiful. The increase of Avas Yisrael, of caring for each other, loving for each other, and really helping each other, will surely eradicate any negativity and any mishaps from happening again in the future. May Hashem help us that we're zeicha to see the Geula Shleima, the true redemption of Mashiach Tzidkenu, and every Yid and every creation of God will be well, uninjured, healthy, successful, and will be zeicha to the Geula Shleima, so that before Shivasa B'Tammuz comes, we'll be already in Yerushalayim, in HaKodesh, B'mheira B'yameinu, Mamish, a guten Erev Shabbos.